Well, good afternoon, everyone, and we hope your week is off to a fantastic start. Thanks for watching THV 11 News at noon. I'm Amanda Yeager. Let's go ahead and start this half hour by taking a first look at our weather forecast. We have meteorologist Scott Covert. Good to have you with us, Scott, and we appreciate the nice weather, too.
Yeah, it's not too bad at all. Of course, this weekend we saw a lot of sunshine. Temperatures were really nice and comfortable, and while today it still feels pleasant outside, there are obviously a lot of clouds moving through the natural state. Temperatures right now in Little Rock sitting at 64 degrees, 69 this afternoon in Hot Springs and Mena, Texarkana, Camden already in the low 70s. Here's your satellite and radar. No rain on the radar, but we are tracking that dense cloud cover moving through the area. But if you look to the southwest, where those temperatures are already in the low 70s, we're seeing some clearing. We'll likely see a few peaks of sunshine throughout the day today. 76 is the high temperature. That light breeze will remain out of the southwest between about 5 and 10 miles per hour. I'm tracking the potential for some strong storms come Wednesday of this week. And of course, we're always working towards the weekend. It's shaping up to be quite nice. We'll talk about that and more coming up in your extended forecast.
Protests continued over the weekend as Governor Asa Hutchinson considers a big decision. Will he sign a bill banning gender-confirming treatments in Arkansas? Well, the governor has to make that decision today. House Bill 1570 passed the Senate last week. It would prohibit healthcare providers from providing or referring youth to gender-confirming treatments. The Arkansas chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics held a rally at the state capitol this weekend, expressing concerns about the impact this could have on kids and their doctors. People in Bentonville also protesting this weekend.
Trans youth, all trans people should have access to the health care that they need.
It prohibits sex change procedures, both surgically and chemically. That's all it does. It doesn't stop any health care. It doesn't stop any counseling.
According to Representative Robin Lundstrom, who helped write the bill, this ban would be one of the first of its kind in the U.S. if enacted. But if the governor signs the measure, the fight will not end there. The American Civil Liberties Union plans to take legal action to block the ban if it's signed into law. Well, now we want to take a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers here in Arkansas. Our rolling average, the dotted line on your screen right there, continues to drop this afternoon. And since we last saw you on Friday morning, the state reported nearly 450 cases, with just 84 being reported yesterday. And the good news continues when we look at hospitalization numbers as well. While this number isn't dropping as fast as it once was, that is expected as we see fewer and fewer Arkansans in the hospital fighting the virus. As of right now, there are 145 COVID-related hospitalizations in the state. And a new sign that Americans are ready to move on from the pandemic, more people traveled by air over the weekend than at any point since this crisis began. But health officials are concerned about whether loosening restrictions will lead to another spike in infections. CBS's Errol Barnett is at Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey.
In San Jose, California, Kathy Anderson reunited with her daughter for the first time in a year.
I love you too.
Anderson is one of the millions of Americans who returned to the skies this weekend, shattering pandemic travel records. Increased demand prompted Delta Airlines to temporarily open up middle seats, and Americans' domestic bookings are at 90% of pre-pandemic levels.
It just seems like all of a sudden it's a rush.
Larry Pettis says he felt more comfortable flying because he'd been fully vaccinated. He's one of the 61 million Americans, roughly 1/5 of U.S. adults, who fall in that category.
We know for vaccinated people, it's reasonably safe to do this. But among unvaccinated people, it is not yet. And I'm worried that it's going to lead to, unfortunately, more infections and more hospitalizations.
Dr. Ashish Jha says decreased testing, relaxation of public health measures, and new variants are now contributing to the spread of COVID in several states.
It really is a race right now between these variants that have become widespread and are spreading much more effectively and quickly, and how many people we can protect through vaccines.
The variant initially detected in the UK now accounts for about 26% of COVID cases in the US. And this weekend, officials announced a new variant initially identified in India was found in the Bay Area.
It's actually just made up of a couple of other variants that we've seen elsewhere. The data so far suggests that it may be more contagious, like the UK variant is.
Now, as scary as that sounds, Josh says that the vaccines do appear effective against the new variants, and more Americans are getting vaccinated, which is welcome news for the travel industry, the sector really being battered by the pandemic. Hotel and leisure businesses added 280,000 jobs during the month of March, but the unemployment rate is still twice the national average at roughly 13%. Errol Barnett, CBS News, Newark, New Jersey.
Happening today, Arkansas State Police and other law enforcement agencies are joining authorities across the country to stop distracted driving. It's called the You Drive, You Text, You Pay campaign. It runs today through next Monday. So if you're using your phone while driving or doing anything that might cause you to take your eyes off the road, you could be pulled over. As part of an effort to lower the number of vehicle crashes and fatalities from distracted driving. Also happening today, 3 Little Rock community centers will reopen with COVID precautions. They're the Dunbar, Southwest, and West Central facilities. People can reserve times to use the fitness centers, basketball courts, and walking tracks. If you want to reserve a spot, you can call the community centers or use the online reservation system. Looking at some of our big national headlines now, today is the start of the second week in the Derek Chauvin trial. The former Minneapolis officer faces 3 charges in the death of George Floyd. This week, prosecutors are expected to call expert witnesses, including the Minneapolis police chief, who will reportedly testify that Chauvin's actions were not consistent with the police department training. The tributes continue to grow for U.S. Capitol police officers outside the security barricade at the Capitol. One officer was killed and another was injured when a man armed with a knife rammed his car into the officers on Friday. The suspect was 25-year-old Noah Green. Green was shot and killed by police. His family says he may have been suffering from mental illness. The political fallout continues from Major League Baseball's decision to move its All-Star game out of Georgia. This was in response to the state's new voting law. Skylar Henry has more details from Washington.
The White House says President Joe Biden supports Major League Baseball's decision to move its All-Star game out of Atlanta after Georgia passed new voting restrictions.
The president has made his view clear that he believes that he has major concerns about the bill passed in Georgia. He's consistently argued it should be easier and not harder to vote.
The Georgia law shrinks the window for sending in absentee ballots, limits the number of ballot drop boxes available to voters, gives more control of local elections to state lawmakers, and makes it a crime to give food or water to people waiting in line to vote. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp says while there was no fraud in the last election, the law is needed to keep future elections secure.
Major League Baseball caved to fear and lies from liberal activists. They ignored the facts of our new election integrity law, and they ignored the consequences of their decision on our local community.
Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms told CBS this morning she respects Major League Baseball's decision.
But I don't like the fact that we have been put in this position by our state legislature and our governor because the people of Georgia will suffer.
A number of companies, including Delta, Georgia's largest employer, have criticized the new law, prompting former President Donald Trump to call for a boycott of the companies. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Cobb County, Georgia estimates it will lose up to $100 million in revenue as a result of MLB's decision. And when it comes to voting back here in Arkansas, lawmakers are advancing 4 bills to tighten up voting restrictions. Now, the bills would tighten restrictions on absentee ballots and prevent people from lingering near polling places. Republicans support the bill, saying they would help fight fraud. Democrats say they would discourage legitimate voting by disadvantaged people. Churches across the world had to get creative to celebrate Easter Sunday. We'll show you how coming up after the break.
It's an overcast day across central Arkansas. The temperatures are warming up nicely with highs in the 70s expected later today. A look at what the day holds as well as the rest of the week still ahead.